Wynter Tai chats Muay Thai Baran with Lionheart Aru. Let's go. Hey guys, welcome back to Wynter Tai Chats, and in this episode we're going to reach all the way across the Atlantic to speak with an expert, a teacher of traditional Thai martial arts. He's been practicing for 3 decades and teaching for 2 and shows absolutely no sign of stopping anytime soon. He's an accomplished filmmaker, having directing, producing, and even acting credits to his repertoire. And it's with these accolades, you can definitely tell he's the perfect person to educate us on Muay Thai and Muay Baran. Please welcome Kru Nuakai Lionheart Aru. How are you doing today, sir?
Sawadee Cup. Give thanks, bro. Really good, man. Good to see you. Thank you for having me on the show. That was a great intro. Appreciate that.
Thank you very much. No, Kru, all I have to say is thank you very much for accommodating the time to speak with me, because there's like a 5-hour time difference between us, as you are based in London.
Yes, sir.
All right, no problem. So let's just go straight into this interview so you can go ahead and start enjoying your Sunday night. First question: how did you start the martial arts, Kru?
Yeah, great question. I love that question. Often doesn't get asked enough. Once you become a teacher, people forget that you started at some point, right? But you know, I'm of mixed heritage. My father is Jamaican and my mother is British on the top surface. But obviously, on both sides of my family, I have African ancestry going back, and I'm a self-aware man from the continent of Africa. And my journey is my parents separated when I was about 4 or 5 years old, and I used to go and stay with my dad at the weekends. And I was about 7 or 8, and one night my dad let me stay up, and we watched Bloodsport. I was about a 7 or 8 year old, yeah. And I just remember sitting there, I was tired, and then the film started, and I was like, what is this? You know, and I was just so captivated. It was a film based, starring Jean-Claude Van Damme, and it was basically around a soldier who goes AWOL because he wants to take part in this special tournament. And you had martial artists from all different practices and backgrounds meet together and then have this incredible tournament. Now, many years as a martial artist, looking back, you know, I have different perspectives on what I see in the film. But as a child, when I first watched this film, I was just so captivated. One, by the different cultures in the film and the different styles of martial arts. And two, I was most captivated by a young man who didn't have the fighting or martial skills going on this transformative journey of being inadequate and becoming highly capable and highly skilled and confident and capable as a man in his martial abilities. And so that film just inspired me as a kid at like 7 or 8. Went back to my mum's trying to throw flying kicks, attacking the plants in the garden. And she's like, what has gotten into him? My dad was like, the boy likes martial arts. What can I say? And then so they found some local places for me to train. And I started doing Japanese jiu-jitsu. And I started doing kickboxing around the age of 7 and 8. I did it consistently for about a year. And then, you know, there was an interruption in my martial art journey. I got sent to boarding school. I went to quite like a harsh, very British boarding school that was very old school and racist. And it was a bit of a challenge, you know, like there. And I think that first year of studying martial arts gave me a certain level of like toughness to be able to handle that, you know, because, you know, the older kids were racist, used to try and beat me up, and I used to have to, you know, I had to hold my own. Went through a lot of different challenging circumstances, surviving in those types of environments. And then I moved schools quite a lot. And then I got introduced to judo at one point, tried judo for a little bit. Didn't so much get on that well with like my gi being scruffed up and thrown down and then having to fix the gi and going through certain challenges. And then I got into a bit of like traditional boxing, loved that, but just didn't have a very good trainer who just loved his sons punching me up, gave me a bit of like toughness, but just wasn't teaching me anything. But I loved the fight of it, and I didn't get consistency. Did a bit of fencing as a kid, loved a bit of the fencing, but just had a window into it. And when I was 16, a friend of mine introduced me to Muay Thai, and I went to do a Muay Thai class. And I really could say that that point changed my martial life forever, right? So I'd had flavors of martial arts. I had a bit of my practice developing within me, little bits of training here over consistent times, but nothing consistent over a long period of time. But it had sort of woken up certain dormant memories in my DNA, of the inner warrior mind and the inner warrior martial abilities within my DNA. And when I did this Muay Thai class at 16, I had never felt that level of fatigue and like exhilaration and like full body coordination. Like I felt like I was gonna throw up. And I was just hooked from day one, right? It pushed me, but it was so exhilarating at the same time. It made me realize, oh, this is a place where I can really refine myself, strengthen myself, develop myself. There's so much to learn, and it's like the natural science of how your body moved. So then I trained consistently again with Ralph Bill at Minotaurs Muay Thai. It was up in Watford at the time. I trained consistently for about a year. Again, he used to pick me up from my house like 2 or 3 times. My trainer lived around the corner from where I lived, so he used to pick me up, take me to the gym, and I trained like proper consistently. But then I had a break again. I moved into central London, and then I just began my own practice, right? Like I began practicing what I learned from him, and I began just shadowboxing and doing my drills and doing my strength training at home and just developing my own martial mind, you know? And then I found a variety of different gyms in London, in central London. I trained at Cobra Muay Thai, was in Victoria for a little while. Found myself to All Stars in West London, what's like a traditional boxing gym that also did Muay Thai on a Saturday. And my boxing got really good there. And then my Muay Thai was able to grow. And then in my early 20s, I found my way to Arjan Vinny, who was a crew at the time. And he was one of the head fight coaches of KO. And KO is one of London's oldest Muay Thai gyms. And he ran the gym up in North London. And I started training there. And then he just showed me a whole nother degree of deeper levels of Muay Thai training. Arjan, as he is now, he was a crew, he was a teacher at the time, but now he's an adjunct, so he's a master as he's gone through deeper stages of his own grading and training. And he was an incredible teacher. He was properly like no messing around, very strict, very hard, old school system of training. But because he had been going back and forth to Thailand a lot, he had connected with certain Thai federations that taught him Muay Baran and Muay Thai. And, in Thailand, I think around 40, 50 years ago, certain Thai authorities and institutions began working towards structuring the martial art and reviving the ancient battlefield system alongside the sports Muay Thai. And so they were kind of given this sort of mission to go forth and create more structured grading systems that could help certificate and grade the science of martial arts from a Thai perspective. And so my teacher was going back and forth to Thailand and he was learning this ancient battlefield system that also taught sports Muay Thai. And so he was like a head fight coach in the UK and, had like, Muay Thai, like out of Thailand, like in Thailand, has a very strong sports Muay Thai focus. And so he taught a really solid, hard sports Muay Thai focus. And most people did those classes. And I did those classes, but I also began doing Muay Baran classes with him as well. What was very niche because he only did we had small Muay Baran classes, but they were hard. The stuff you had to do, the strength training and the press up stuff, all the crazy physical strength endurance training we used to do before you started learning any techniques. used to just get rid of all of the chaff. It used to just burn away anyone who wasn't really dedicated. You wouldn't survive to get the techniques. So that was my journey of
Just a,
really getting introduced into that level of martial arts.
just a quick question. Sorry to cut you right there, Kru.
No, man, it's cool.
So Muay Thai is more like the sport version, the sport fighting, and then Muay Boran is more the traditional battlefield martial art. You're saying?
Yeah, so Muay Thai is a martial art. It's a sport that evolved in Thailand. It's known as the science of eight limbs, and it's a very competitive, explosive, exciting, highly dynamic, offensive and defensive ring sport fighting art. Right. So Muay Thai specifically is designed in a ring, and it's gone through a whole evolution. It didn't begin as that. Right. Muay Thai began in the way we call it today as Muay Boran. And Muay Boran basically means ancient fighting. Now, Muay Boran is actually an umbrella term. It's not a specific art. Because in ancient Siam, or ancient Thailand, there was many different variations of people who did the science of eight limbs, eight with nine weapons, right? And the eight limbs are your hands, your elbows, your knees, and your legs. And then the ninth weapon is the head. So in Baran, they use the head as a weapon, but from sports Muay Thai and in the Muay Baran systems, the head is all about strategy. You know, it's not fighting with raw aggression. It's all about strategy and tactics. So the mind is always that secret weapon that allows all the weapons to work at the highest degree. And so Muay Boran in the modern word is a term that means ancient fighting, and it encompasses a variety of these ancient systems that use those different physical weapons. And it also included some weaponry system that like Krabi Kabong, and that would be also relating to two swords, single sword, and a spear, and a sword and a shield. Right. So, and in the ancient battlefield systems, this system developed for war, invading nations coming in trying to like conquer, rape, steal, pillage. The Thais, the Siamese developed these strong fighting systems to protect themselves from invading nations. And the reality is like when we look at Siamese culture, like Southeast Asia, one of their most dominant, strong empires for a long period of time was the Khmer Empire. And they had really powerful, spiritual, religious, highly civilized, highly developed culture. And they had their own martial systems, but it was like a very imperial, religious, hierarchical structure. And they ruled most of Southeast Asia. And so certain of the ancient Thai kingdoms, so the Thai people who were known in the past as the Siamese kingdoms, like we can trace the Moy Baran systems all the way back to the Sukhothai kingdom. Um, and in the Sukhothai kingdom, they began to use and develop this martial system that became strong enough to compete against the Khmer Empire and became strong enough to overcome the Khmer Empire. So actually, like from my study, Moy Baran, this ancient fighting system that comes from Siam, was a liberating fighting system. It liberated them from the imperial rule of the Khmer Empire and allowed them to create their own sovereignty as a people and develop the Thai kingdoms in their early stages. And then they developed their own powerful kingdoms that just grew from strength to strength and strength. And then, you know, the Sukhothai kingdom evolved and that continued to grow. And then you had a new Thai kingdom called the Ayutthayan kingdom, what became a really powerful kingdom that eventually was so powerful that they conquered the Khmer Empire. And then they became the most dominant kingdom in Southeast Asia for hundreds of years. And their civilization continued to refine these ancient fighting systems very much alongside their Buddhist traditions. So a lot of the ancient systems as well, it wasn't just like this wild, savage fighting system. Like it was all about ethics. It was all about higher morality. It was all about the Four Noble Truths in Buddhism. You know, it was about protection. It was about uprightness. You know, it was about living a clean and righteous life and being an empowered warrior, but to protect the kingdom, you know, to protect the royal lineage. And the royal lineage was meant to be the custodians of the people, the protectors of the people, that the higher parents of the people. and the martial art was designed to protect the kingdom. And so that's been my journey of like studying my martial art and and learning the deeper levels of it. So when I met Arjan Vinny, he just opened my mind from the sport Muay Thai, and then he just started to teach me the ancient battlefield side of things. And then I began to learn this much more traditional form of Muay Thai. Like he taught me in Thai and English. So we'd learn a lot of the terminologies, the footwork in Thai, we'd learn the strikes in Thai, we'd learn certain of the counter moves in Thai. And as my martial art has developed and grown, and as I've spent many training camps in Thailand and working with Thai grandmasters and learning, then I've begun to understand the depth of the art, you know, and there's so much of like history, culture, mythology, and deeper meaning behind the martial art. You know, today, Muay Thai specifically is super famous because of its prestige in like UFC or K1, or now like you've got the Glory Muay Thai kickboxing competitions, right? So like Muay Thai has become famous on a global stage because of these mixed martial arts arenas, and it holds its own as such an effective stand-up fighting system. But it's often just seen as the as a fighting system, you know, like you know, wow, this is a powerful, very violent and aggressive fighting system because it's seen in the sense of a sport. But its roots and its foundation is from a very potent and powerful martial art that was all about righteousness, uprightness, self-protection, protection of your family, protection of a nation, and it was very much about protection rather than just fighting for the ego's sake. But as you see, like you know, as time's gone on, because people love the art so much in Asia, in Thailand, you know, it became a competition, and then people would come to show their skills. And so they took a lot of the killing moves out and the breaking moves out and the maiming moves out, and it slowly became more of a sport. And then as Thailand became more recognized on a global stage, you know, they began to copy certain of the traditions in Western boxing, like in a ring, having gloves. So it became more of a sport that we perceive globally like other sports. And then obviously gambling is a big factor in it. And then so, you know, the gambling aspect of it can often take away from the martial essence of it because it becomes more about, you know, I want you to win to prove how good we are to make us money. Whereas in its essence, right, it wasn't about money. It was about protection of self, protection of family, protection of a kingdom, a community, a nation. It was a martial art that evolved in a place where it was this tool that came about to help the people protect themselves.
That is an absolutely great answer, and thank you for telling me about your story. A lot resonates with me, especially when you were talking about how recently in Thailand they want to, structureize the Muay brand. They want to make it more, structured, so it can be passed on instead of being something, um, it's hard to pass on something concrete when you don't have something in writing to pass down. So I
Mm,
understand that. Reason why that resonates is because I did an interview with Master Mark Wiley of Nocho Kun, but he's also a master of Filipino martial arts, right? And he was saying that because of the Japanese influence in the Philippines, right, and how structured Japanese martial arts are, like karate, you have your dan, you have your cues, you have your certain things that white belt's supposed to know, certain things the yellow belts are supposed to know, and so on like that.
mm,
The Filipinos kind of saw that and structurized, right? Filipino martial arts like Arnis and Cali. Well, Arnis and Cali are the same thing, just different terms. But
mm.
that they started to structure things, because of that Japanese influence. Would you say that had anything to do the Japanese influence had anything to do like with the push to structureize Muay Boran or anything
I think
like
it's
that?
interesting. It's possible. I can't say a direct thing. I mean, obviously, Japan and Thailand have had traditions and connections and trading relationships and social interactions for like clearly over 1,000 years and probably longer, right? Um, You know, the Ayutthaya kingdom in its heyday had a civilization and its city had 1 million people. Like it was bigger than most of the European cities, right? Like in its heyday was before there was any big cities in America from the modern cities that we know of today, right? Um, like 14th century, 12th, 11th century. Um, so sorry, 12th century, 13th century, like massive civilization and city that was a trading hub for China, India, Japan, um, the Middle East, Europe. It was a huge trading city. Um, and so yeah, for sure, I would say, you know, Thai martial arts have gone through these different evolutions where you had like the king, the Royal King's Guard, and they would have taught these advanced systems, but maybe more orally, right? Not necessarily written down. But then you did have certain military officers who then began to systemize a system of some of these ancient systems. I've forgotten the exact name of it now, but there was a particular book written by a Thai general who then structured one aspect of the art. And so the art was constantly being structured, but because there was so many different angles it came from, right? Like there was different variations of Muay Boran, but they still used the same level of punches, elbows, knees, kicks, and the head, but slightly different variations. So maybe slightly different variation of guard. Their guard might have been here, their guard might have been here, their guard might have been here. They might have been more like kick heavy, some might have been more elbow heavy, some might have been more about takedowns, some might have been more stronger in their clinch game and their clinch focus. Others might have been really like defensive in their system. So very much about counter attack, wait for them and then counter attack. So there was nuances around styles that kind of became quite clan based. Um, and so as these systems evolved, different tournaments went on that allowed certain systems to rise above others, right? So you had certain key Muay Boran systems that then rose above others, like your Muay Chaya, your Muay Karat, and these different styles that were like one was more fluid, one was more about power and strength, and there was about 5 different ancient Muay Boran systems that became the most recognized, even though there was probably dozens more than that, right? But these became the most dominantly recognized, and then they began to be more systemized, but in the niche sort of Baran systems. And then from the sports side of things, with the sports Muay Thai, obviously people learn without directly like belts. You would learn through repetition and consistency, turning up. Here, these are the punches. Here, these are the kicks. Here are the knees. And then here's the light sparring. Boom, you're in competition. Like, here's your fight. You win, you lose, you're back to the drawing board, back to training, bag work, road work, consistent training. And I think the more Thai martial art began spreading to other countries, and then if you look at the effectiveness, like karate is done very well, part of partly because of how well it was structured, how well the whole belt system was. Like I think a lot of other martial arts, the way they're taught, they give really good sort of like discipline, self-awareness, focus, certain values and principles. And there was like this natural sort of like development stuff that was more removed from the fighting side of it. And a lot of these other martial arts were more semi-contact. They weren't full contact in their fighting. So they tended to do a lot better. Like when you look at like Thai martial arts, like even in this country, in like in the UK, and probably somewhat in America, like they developed slightly slower because they were very strong fighting systems, right? It was full contact. You weren't playing, you were getting like proper kicked with a shin, punches, knees, elbows. It was a much more aggressive and dangerous fighting system, right? And so it was taught much more from the fighting aspect because in the sports side of Muay Thai in Thailand, like is an explosive fighting system. Imagine you get elbowed in the face. Like there's no padding on your elbow. You're just getting clean elbow in the face, kneed in the face. Like it can be a very bloody sport at times. And so from the fighting side of it, in the ring sport side of it, there's not necessarily as much focus on the martial arts side of it. And I think when I say the martial arts side of it, I'm talking about sort of like the principles of integrity and like self-awareness and like the discipline stuff. So I reckon as time went on, these different martial arts, like the Thais would also observe that and was like, look, we need to actually preserve our art more, you know. And now even if you look at it, like the Thai governing bodies, there's different Thai governing bodies around the world. And there's you know, some gyms are like there's no such thing as a grading system in Thai. You know, like I know people who have been training in Muay Thai for years, and there's like, what grading in Muay Thai? Nah, that's some new made up thing. There's no grading in Muay Thai because a lot of gyms don't teach a grading structure. It's just, you know, you learn some punches this day, you learn some punches that day, you know, you learn some kicks this day and some kicks that day, you know, like, and you build up a knowledge. But if I said to someone, all right, who's been doing Muay Thai for 10 years, but they've never done a grading system, I said, show me 5 different variations of footwork in a movement system rather than just in an evasive or an attacking system, right? And a lot of people wouldn't know it, you know, because they haven't been taught through a grading structure. And like, so the way I was taught is I learned in lots of different places. So in other places where you just get a freestyle form of learning Muay Thai, a bit of this and a bit of that. It's great. You can progress and you can become a really effective fighter after years of development. And then I've also been taught from Thais a very structured grading syllabus where you learn the basics of like directional movement. You learn the basics of pivoting, right? You learn I'm not even saying the Thai names, I was just saying English, right? You learn the basics of changing stance as you're moving forward, both aggressively and defensively. You learn how to step out off of the line and create angles. You learn how to move in circular movements, right? You learn how to move in zigzag movements, right? You learn how to block and move as you're stepping, right? So you learn like more dynamic movements, what are more about flow and rhythm in your feet and timing. So like I learned like proper structured ways of like breaking down footwork, breaking down an array of over 20 variational different types of punches, an array of over 20 variational elbows, knees, different types of shin kicks. You know, a lot of people that have never done a grading system, they maybe just think about the horizontal Thai kick. So the day that, the most famous Thai kick where you fully turn your hip over and you almost kick in a straight horizontal line like that. You know, that's one of the Thai kicks because you got, you know, how we teach it is you've got the 45-degree kick, what's called Dei Cheng, what's about speed. So you don't fully commit your hip. It's you partially turn your hip and your kick is moving at a 45-degree line going up diagonally upwards. So it's about speed. When you turn it into horizontal kick and it becomes Dei Dat or Tei Dat, yeah, then it's a horizontal kick. Then it's way more about power. But then you've also got Dei Tawat, what's where you're gonna like do what they call a question mark kick in other martial arts, right? You've got Dei Fad, what's more like what they call it, like a half moon kick or a crescent kick in other martial arts. You know, you've got the vertical shin kick. So like when you learn the grading syllabus, you learn way more variational lines of the details. Same with the push kick, right? You know, like loads of people just think of a straight push kick, but there's loads of variations of the push kick. So because I had the privilege of learning from Thais this structure where in the Muay Boran side of it, you often are taught in forms. So you'd learn a form and say if we were going to be like a striking form, for example, right? You'd learn a punching form and you do individual strikes. So like, you know, madrong, matsui, matawad, or like straight punch, uppercut, hook, long hook, body shot, overhand shot, spinning back shot, double shot, swinging punches. You know, you'd learn individual strikes that would take you on a series of movements and you would learn them like that. So you would get this window of like, oh, wow, there's that many variations of strikes because you would learn it in a form. So then you would start and you do that in both different stances. So you'd start to really refine your level of movement based on these single strikes. Then when it came to going back to applying the Baran form, applying that back to your sports Muay Thai, you then start to shadow box and just freestyle. Now you've got a much bigger array of punches to punch with, right? Because you've learned a bigger series of strikes specifically. Whereas a lot of people might just they specialize in their straight punches, their uppercuts and hooks, right? So six basic punches, and then they might have like slight variations of them, right? But not necessarily because you've been taught the details of the variations. Maybe you've just seen it, or maybe when you're throwing the punches, it just comes out like that way. Like a lot of the other gyms I went to, I was never taught 20 plus variational Thai punches. I was just taught the six basic punches, and then there's variations to those six basic punches, right? But learning the Baran side of it, I learned like 20 way more clearly defined, very specifically different types of punches. And then I would apply that back to the sports Muay Thai. So I found like learning in forms, learning in grading structures gave me a much deeper understanding of the art. And so even today I teach in both. I teach a freestyle form of just learning. You can turn up and just learn like bits of this and bits of that. And then I also teach a grading structure where people can actually go through the cons and actually go through their grades. Because different people want to learn in different ways. And you can master the art in both different ways. But I find learning in a grading structure, if you have a very integrated grading structure that is traditional, that's not just a Mickey Mouse structure designed to make money, but it's like a very refined structure that's designed to help people master their practice and be connected to the kind of the morality, the ethics, the self-control, the self-awareness, the self-discipline, and the roots of the foundation of where your art comes from. Our grading system, we bring part of it that people have to know, where did Muay Thai come from? What's its history? Can you count in Thai? Can you say the terms in Thai and English? Do you learn parts of Thai culture while you're learning it? Rather than you've just taken their art and you're teaching it like you've just taken the violence of fighting and it's lost where it came from. Whereas like this martial art evolved on the battlefields of Siam as a protective martial art. It's important for me as a teacher to, as much as possible, to try and fly the flag of Thai culture, to share Thai culture, Thai spirituality, Thai mythology, Thai history, and interweave that into the practice, because that's where it emerged. That's the land where it came from. That's the people that refined it and are still refining it and developing it. And I think the more you can connect to the culture of it, the greater your own practice becomes.
Very true. Cannot be said any better than you just did, sir.
Give
Thank you very
thanks.
much for the answer. So let me ask you this, Kru. All right. So Muay Thai sport fighting. When you go to the Baran side, now it is more. There's much more detail, and there's much more. Well, I can't say it any better. There's much more detail, as you say, variations. Like you probably get variations of six basic strikes, like you had said on the Muay Thai side. But then those six strikes, now you're getting like 200 variations when you add everything up on the Baran side.
Mm.
Okay. Plus the cultural, traditional aspects added to those techniques as well. That's Muay Baran, Muay Thai, just fighting. Correct.
Also, when it comes to Muay Thai, right, you're dealing with a sport. So it's more like, can you can you defeat, like physical fight in chess? Can you defeat your opponent? Can you tactically beat them in the ring? And that could mean that you both are standing on your feet at the end of the fight, but one of you was more dominant, one of you blocked better, one of you landed more shots, one of you tripped the other one, or sorry, sweep the other one more times, because they landed more cleaner, effective shots, or one knocked out the other person and beat the other person because they made the other person stop, right? So that's a sport. But the Baran is a battlefield. So it's about how to use minimum effort to cause maximum effect. Yeah. Like how to like immobilize somebody. Somebody punches you. How do you rupture their elbow, dismember their shoulder, strike them effectively and take them to the ground and restrain them so they're fully immobilized? How do you break their arm? If they kick you, how do you rupture their knee because you attacked the knee joint as they kicked? You caught their knee, you caught their leg, you attack the knee joint, and then you fully immobilize. So their leg's gone now. Their leg's not working anymore. Now they're on the ground. What are they gonna do, right? So like Baran was more about battlefield. It's like how do you either fully stop, break, kill, or restrain your opponent with minimal effort and maximum effect. And I think that's a big divisive difference, right? So when it comes to also understanding the Muay Boran, Muay Thai is fully included in Muay Boran. So if you're learning Muay Boran, all of the weapons and all of the tools that is in Muay Thai is in Muay Boran, but loads more. Because they in the Boran we're teaching locks, we're teaching like restraints, we're teaching breaking moves, and we're teaching moves that are really about like warfare, battlefield, like stopping somebody effectively, because somebody's broke into your home and you're fighting for your life. Versus this is the sports side of it, you know. I think
Okay.
those are the biggest clear distinctional differences, and then also how it's taught. Like the Muay Boran stance, like I said before, you've got different sort of like there's different schools that have slightly different stances, um, and you know one of the systems that I was taught is the Muay Thai variation of how we stand in the Muay Thai guard, and that guard isn't necessarily how we would fight. So we'd have quite a deep squat in when we're standing, and we'll have this arm up like a shield and this arm ready like a sword. Because also certain of our movements in the Baran, also I could switch and put a sword in my hand, and I have the same movements. Yeah, I could be striking with the back of my hand like a hammer fist, or I could be following that through with a sword. So there's similar movements that would relate to having a weapon or not having a weapon. And then in that, so your stance might be a much lower stance. So your legs are constantly in tension in your training. So you're strengthening your legs in all that you're doing. But when you're fighting, you might not be that low, right? Your stance might be like this when you're holding guard in training because you're flexing your body and you're strengthening your body. In fighting, your guard might change completely, right? So it's like the positions you would hold in the Baran for the training is also about strengthening and refining the body that might not have the same relation in its usage in combat, if you know what I mean.
All right. So it's kind of like a yin and yang kind of thing. Muay Thai, sport, right? Sport kind of fight. And Muay Boran, that's more traditional. That's more like maiming and killing.
And
Like
just
that's
straight battlefield, yeah, straight warrior
yeah.
battlefield.
All
Yeah.
right, all right, all right, all right. So, um, knowing, okay, well, I don't know how it is in England. Self-defense is like definitely not killing, maiming, breaking a guy's knee and incapacitating him so he can't do anything. Right? If you go that far now, nowadays it's so weird over here, bro. Right? Nowadays, if this guy attacked you, he tried to kick you, you catch his leg, you break his knee, right? He can't walk anymore. He'll turn around and sue you, right, for damages to his knee, right, and most likely he'll win, right. So you're just defending yourself, but then you have to end up paying all of this money for this guy's medical bills, and then on top of that, the fines and stuff, right? So here's a question for you, Kru. How effective in a situation like that would Muay Boran or Muay Thai be for self defense? How
Yeah,
effective is
I
it?
mean, very, very effective, very effective. Um, Obviously, as a martial arts teacher, I teach all my students that if you're training in martial arts, you become like a loaded weapon, right? You can't just be out on the street applying these techniques just freely, right? There's always consequence. And this is also, I think, the difference between teaching fighting and teaching a martial arts. Because the martial art teaches you accountability. For every action, there's a consequence and a reaction. So, I know of stories where somebody, like a boxer, is out on the street, somebody picked a fight on him and he just gave him one punch. The guy fell over and bust his head on the pavement and died. Yeah. And then the boxer got locked up for that because he basically killed the guy with one punch. The guy started the fight with him. So like for me, remember I did say restraint. So like for me, it's about restraint, right? Like if you're teaching it from a self-defense perspective, there's a multitude of ways I look at it. First, if you're training regularly in a martial art, it should give you the fitness to escape if you need to escape, right? See danger before danger sees you, get out of dodge, right? Secondly, if you can't escape, and you don't, because really in reality is, yeah, the ego side of wanting to fight. If you want your ego wants to fight, get in the ring, go and sports fight. Don't let your ego be fighting on the street, right? Because there's consequences. You could easily just give somebody one punch, they slip and fall, and like literally break their neck on the pavement, right? So there's consequences to that, and you'll be liable. So you have to be very accountable in everything you do as a martial artist, right? And so one principle is try and move away, avoid it, get out of the way. Spot danger before danger sees you, and you've navigated around it. You didn't even have to face the danger. If you can't, then we teach from a perspective of like Bruce Lee said, the art of fighting without fighting. You can use strategy and wisdom and like a cunning mind to outmaneuver your opponent without physically fighting. So I don't know if you remember that scene in Enter the Dragon where there's that American guy and he's like, I heard you can fight to Bruce Lee. And he's like, let's fight now. And Bruce Lee's like, no, no, no. Fight here, small boat. Let's go to island. We fight on island. So the guy's like, all right, cool. They're already on a boat traveling to go and do this tournament, right? And so he says to the guy, come, we get in boat. So the guy gets into the boat first, and Bruce Lee just unties the boat, makes the boat dangle way far out to sea, and then ties the boat back on. And he says, the art of fighting without fighting. So he beat his opponent, but without physically fighting, because the guy wanted to fight him, and he was like, all right. And then he just outsmarted him. He fought him without physically fighting him. He was like, "We'll fight when we're actually in the tournament. If we're faced in the tournament, that's when I'll show you what I can do." So for me, when you're confronted with an aggressive situation, can you apply different methods, right? Like one say, can you be assertive and make the other person back down because you're assertive? Can you be passive and make the person back down or calm them by being passive? Yeah. Why my John always said to me, like physical fighting can also relate back to a conversation. Like if somebody's speaking to you in a way, you can block and counterattack in a verbal way. You can hold a certain emotional, energetic field that people also don't really want to enter. So they could be like, yeah, I'd rather avoid this situation. This doesn't feel like a situation I want to commit to. We teach self-defense like physical fighting from a last resort, right? Like, and I think legally in this country, if someone physically begins to attack you, you have every right to attack them back. But it has to be you have to be conscious of the I can't think of the term right now, but you have to be conscious of the measurement of how much you're striking somebody, right? You can't just grab hold of somebody and then be like constantly elbowing them in the head until they're unconscious, right? Like this would be overkill, right? And for me, it's that as a martial artist, you have an accountability to self-control because we're used to swimming in the pressure of aggression. We're used to swimming in the aggression of high testosterone fighting. We're used to sparring. We're used to pushing ourselves to the limit and beyond the limit. We're used to being punched in the face, kicked in the face, in the head, kicked in the body, kneed in the body. We're used to fighting, right? So it gives us a greater degree of having a little bit more self-control when confronted with these situations in the real world. Like I know what my elbow could do to somebody's jaw. You know, you could easily rupture and break somebody's jaw. You could easily destroy somebody's nose with strikes, right? So there's a certain level of accountability to it. And I think, especially, you must know the laws of the land of where you are. If you practice a martial art, you are a double-edged sword because you understand how to use your body in as a weapon. So you have to be accountable for the impact you put onto somebody, even if they're the aggressor. And for me, it's that much more that, like I said, with Muay Boran in its true essence was about protection. So even an aggressor coming in, you have to be self-aware of like, what you could do to the aggressor. So it's like, could you talk them out of it? Can you change the situation with your own vibration without it going to violence? If it has to result in conflict, then like I said, the aim is minimal effort, maximum effect, but to restrain somebody, to stop somebody.
Hmm.
How do you see
That's a
it?
brilliant answer.
How do you see it as a martial artist, man? Where you are?
I see it the exact same way, the exact same way, and that's the reason why I asked that question the way I asked that question. I told you how it is over here. Like when literally when you get into an altercation, you definitely have to think of the consequences. Well, as a martial artist, that's what I believe that you need to think of consequences, right? You can't just haphazardly do something and expect, oh, because they started it, I have to finish it. No, no, just like how you say, yeah, know the laws of your land, right? And there are consequences to everybody's action, right?
Yeah.
There are no winners in a fight, especially on the street. There are absolutely no winners, right? Because the guy who won, right, he gets hurt somewhere he's going to get hurt, right?
Even if it's just in
Physically.
his even if it's just in his knuckle or in his elbow, you know.
Yeah, he's going to physically get hurt, right? And then monetarily get hurt for the fines that he's probably going to have to pay for, right? To fix his fix himself, right? Apart from the fines legally that could happen. Say he doesn't have any legal fines, right? But he's still going to have to pay something to fix himself, correct? So
Mhm.
there are no winners, right? There are only losers when it comes to a fight. So yes, I agree with you 100%. There's absolutely nothing I could say any better to that. So it definitely does speak to effectiveness, and like you said, you touched upon something that's very important. The way how something is taught. Right? You had clearly said that in your school you teach from you teach a self defense aspect from the physical part as being the last resort. Okay. And okay, if that's the way how it's taught, that's the way how it's taught. That's how someone's going to
On the
that's
street,
that is
on the
yeah,
street,
exactly.
on the
That's
street.
what I'm
So
saying for self defense,
because we
definitely.
also do ring fighting, right? We also do ring fighting. So
Mhm.
and in ring fighting is yeah, that's just
I
another
definitely
thing.
understand, crew, that self defense and ring fighting are two completely different, right? So we're going to go change gears and take it into the next question, crew. It's usually the question is usually geared towards kung fu, right? And only truly because kung fu is a term that means a skill acquired over time, right? So, what do you honestly believe is the hardest part of developing skill in Muay Thai, Muay Boran?
The hardest part of developing skill um really probably comes down to consistency, right? Consistency and then self-analysis, being aware of like what are your own vulnerabilities. You know, a lot of times people love swimming in their strengths, right? They're really good at a front kick or they're really good at a punch, but like the things that they're not so good at, they avoid. Whereas I feel like actually, if you can swim in the parts that you're not good at, like spend a lot of time working through your vulnerabilities and the things you're not good at, you can refine them and turn them into strengths. So for me, it's that like if you're training regularly and you're building up a good awareness of what is your martial art, whatever your art is, you're understanding how you stand, how where your feet should be, how are you balanced, where your hands should be, how do you move, keeping balance, how do you block an attack to your head, your body, your legs, how do you lead an attack, how do you counter attack, right? How do you evade an attack and then counter attack, right? Like how do you understand the science, the details of your fighting system, right? And then how well do you practice that? And one of the biggest things I find as a teacher is you often I find myself having to repeat myself again and again and again and again and again and again and again. Like, and I find some students you tell them once or twice, three times, they got it. They refine that. They take that feedback on. They no longer are repeating those same mistakes. Other students, I've got certain students, I've been telling the same thing, your guard's still down. You're crossing your feet over. Like you're not engaging your hand when you're push kicking or you're shin kicking. I've been telling them the same thing for years. and it still hasn't clicked in them, right? So as much as I can see it, they can't see it within themselves. So I think self-awareness is a real key. And I like to say, like, as a trainer, as a teacher, I try and give all of my students 100% of myself in every moment when I'm teaching, right? I want to give them 100% of what I've learned. And like over the years, um, through my own trial and error, from being a novice to slowly learning to doing some amateur fighting, to doing coaching, to taking people to compete at different levels in fighting, to actually being assaulted on the street and handling street situations, to traveling and to doing other aspects around my martial arts. You know, I try and give 100% of my life experiences to what I'm teaching. But I always say to my students, the 100% I give you only equates to 10% of your own martial arts mastery. The 90% you have to give yourself. And that means you practice what I teach you. You practice for yourself. You investigate what I taught you. You go and check it and make it sure it's solid. You know, if you find out, oh, actually, Kru, I found this is a better method, come back and reshare that back to me. You know, like I'm not dogmatic. You know, we're learning. It's constantly evolving and refining. So, you know, go and put what I've taught you to the test, refine it, practice it, and then bring it back to me, you know, because like good martial arts are constantly evolving because everybody puts their own energy and their own spirit into it and it evolves and adapts and changes. So I feel like consistency, practice, self-awareness, and dedication are some of the key factors that really help people develop skill in a lifelong journey of martial arts development, man. And you have to swim in the areas you're uncomfortable with. You have to get like in all levels of fighting. I like to say my aim is to learn to be at peace in the face of a storm. So in the most pressureful situation, the worst situation, I want to be at peace, to engage my highest mind, to be able to be most calculated and refine my best method, my best technique to handle that situation. You know, when my students are getting ready to fight, I tell them, imagine your worst opponent you could ever imagine, right? Imagine the worst version of yourself or the best version of yourself, the most fiercest opponent you could ever be having to face. Imagine that person is who you're getting ready to fight. And now start to prepare your mind for handling that person. Yeah. It's like for me, you want to create the biggest obstacle to overcome and then start giving yourself the solutions for overcoming that. Because if you can do that, then you're going to find yourself at peace in most dangerous and most pressureful situations because you prepared yourself for the worst, you know? And for me, that's the best thing I could say on that level, right? Is you have to just dedication, consistency, practice, self-awareness, and then really working on your strengths and your weaknesses. It's going to help you to refine and develop yourself as a martial artist.
Mm-hmm. You know, what you had said at the beginning of your answer, I really do like what you said because it's very true. Like a lot of people, because it's not just consistency, because you can definitely consistently work on what you're good at,
Yeah,
and consistently not work on what you're bad at. So now
yeah.
I do like how you put in those two answers there because they're two separate things. Definitely,
Totally.
lots of
Yeah,
people don't make that distinction,
yeah.
right?
Thank you for saying that. Yeah.
Making the second thing, of course, making your worst things the best, right? And
Mm.
all of that is through constant practice, but constant quality practice, though,
Yeah.
right? Because, like my
Self-awareness, yeah.
teacher,
Self-reflection.
yes, yes, very true, very true. Because my teacher literally says, sometimes I'll go and I teach my Pat Kung Fu teacher. And I'll go down there and I'll train for him for 2 hours. And we'll plan to go down there to train for 2 hours, right? And then an hour into it, you just say, okay, stop, stop. We're done. We're not gonna practice anymore. I'm like, why? And he's like, because you're tired. I'm like, well, okay, so what does that mean? Let's go. Let's just drill it. And he's like, that's exactly it. Don't drill anything. Don't do anything when you're tired because you're going to practice badly, right? And you don't want to practice badly. So I definitely understand.
Mm.
Definitely understand.
Yeah.
right? So it's just knowing, as you say, being self-aware of that,
Mm,
knowing when you're tired, to know that, okay, yeah, when is the best time for you to practice and when is the best when it's not. So definitely,
mm.
I love
It's
that.
great.
That's a great one. Self-awareness. There you go.
It's
There you
great.
go. Brilliant answers, my sir. Brilliant
Thank you, sir.
answers.
Thank you.
So
Thank
I'm going to take you into this next question, right?
you.
And I'd love to know where we can go with this, or where you go with this, I should say. So, how has all the training that you've had with all the different teachers that you've had, right? How has all of that influenced your life? How, both professionally and personally?
Yeah, I mean, great question. It's crazy to think, in it. I think I've been doing martial arts for more of my life than I haven't been doing it, right? So it's like martial arts is so integrated into my life, has been such a empowering and protective tool to me as going from a boy to a man, and as a man trying to find myself in the world, right? I look at myself as a man of mixed heritage. I consider myself a black man. The world looks at me as a black man. How I've grown up in this country in the UK, and dealing with like the levels of racism and prejudice, um, and the lack of opportunities that I had to go through as a young man growing up. And then looking at my own ancestral story and looking at the oppression, the exploitation of my Jamaican ancestries, my African ancestry, and looking at the issues in the world we see today, right? All of these things has been a real big part of my life, discovery of myself, discovery of my journey. And martial arts has really helped me handle these different things. They've helped me ground myself. It's helped me realize that I'm not a product of my life path. I'm a product of my own dedication. I'm a product of my own investigation. I'm a product of my own self-awareness. I'm a product of my own diligence in working on healing from my own line, healing my own personal journey, and stepping up and standing up as a man, as a pillar for myself, for my family, for my community, as a man on earth today. And the martial arts has really helped me develop that side of myself. Like I'd say as a young man, I didn't realize the warrior was so present to my path, right? Like I like studying lots of different things. And when you look at like Jungian philosophy and stuff, right? And you look at the different archetypes. So you've got the warrior archetype, you've got the creative, poetical, creative archetype, you've got the magician archetype, you've got the high priest archetype, you've got the lover archetype, you've got the king or the father archetype, right? Um, and like the warrior archetype has definitely been a really strong guiding principle in my life. And I think, also, my dad passed when I was 18. And so he often was in my life when I was younger as a young man, but he wasn't so much in my life as a young teenager, and he wasn't in my life as I became a man. And so not having a father around to teach me the principles of what a man is, like martial arts really helped me dig deep into my psyche to discover that. I swam in the testosterone filled competitive environment, but in a safe space. It allowed me to really channel my fear. It learned me to channel my courage. It learned me to face my fears. It learned me to discover it gave me the opportunity to discover my courage in the face of challenge. And then it helped me go through this journey of building up my self-esteem, building up my confidence, building up my self-belief, building up my discipline, building up my consistency and my dedication to something, right? And that something was a martial art, but also that was that was a dedication to myself, a dedication to like not just be as I was, but to try and better myself. And martial arts taught me, it gave me a framework to realize where I can refine myself. I can develop myself. I'm not very good at kicking with my left leg, but practicing 10,000 kicks, and I'm pretty good with my left leg now. I wasn't that balanced, but practicing hours and hours of being balanced on one leg, on two legs in movement. Oh, I'm pretty balanced now. Like I didn't know how to handle large people, small people, quick people, but hundreds of hours of sparring, I can handle large people, small people, quick people, slow people, hard people, powerful people. Like I can now handle that because I've put myself in those places. So like right now, I can't even see myself as a man removed of my journey as martial arts because it's been so much. It's played such a big part of my journey of like discovering myself. Um, and then as a young person growing up, I didn't really know what I wanted to do career-wise. I didn't have a great education, had a very broken education. In one of those schools I went to, I lost the use of my right hand, caused a lot of learning situations for me. You know, I got labeled a lot as a bad kid, dealt with a lot of kind of like fell onto the wrong path of certain things. Like my role models around the 90s, around gangster rap and like hip hop, put me on a particular path that didn't give me certain of the skills that I could know of how to create a more positive life. So if there was a period of time in my teens and my early 20s, I was just running down the wrong tracks, chasing after the wrong things. That wasn't my essence. It was more like I was just copying what society was saying that I should be involved in. Like what music, what films, what media, the limited opportunities I could find and see for someone who looked like me and who moved like me in the country I lived in. There was limited options, and those opportunities either didn't resonate with me or they just pushed me towards these glorified imagery that I saw in music and films that were like people of color who were doing things that were perceived as not such not such good ways of making money or behaving, right? And so I chased a lot of those things. But as I began to study myself and I began to study history and study culture and started realizing, oh wow, I learned about Jamaican history. And like I read a book called Slaves That Abolished Slavery, and it was about the 100-year war that the Maroons had with the British. And then I started realizing, oh my gosh, this is the oppression that I've been experiencing in my own life because I didn't even understand the history. I didn't even understand growing up why Europeans looked at black people or African people in the way that they did. So when I started understanding history and realizing, oh no, Africa had loads of civilizations. Europe underdeveloped Africa to build its own wealth. Europe like exploited Africans, exploited us in the Caribbean, exploited us in America, exploited our land in Africa, and used the wealth that they acquired to build Europe. And then they created all these fake stories around history to empower themselves and disempower us. And so the more I started to understand more of a truth around human history and culture, the more I felt empowered, like through the martial arts I had done, to be like, no, actually, I want to be a voice of change. I want to actually help other people learn some of this history because, no matter what your ethnicity is, whether your perception is yourself as white or black or whatever, right? Is like actually human history, like this is all of our story, right? This is all of our story. And so actually, how do we understand the truth of our story? What is more of the truth of human history? How are we more interconnected than disconnected? We all have got these stories around how disconnected we are. How do we look at the interconnected story of who we are and how we are? And my martial art gave me the strength and the courage to go into the unknown. And so in my early 20s, at 24, I made my first film about the history of Sierra Leone. And it looked at pre-colonial Sierra Leone. It looked at um, transatlantic slave trade. It looked at the founding of America. It looked at the American War of Independence that created a movement of Africans who had been enslaved in America, returning back to Africa and then creating Freetown as a province and like the establishment of that as a country. And that was my first ever visit to Africa. And it was also my first journey I was the first of my Jamaican heritage to ever return back to Africa. So I made that film as a 24-year-old man looking at like, why Sierra Leone has got bauxite, it's got diamonds, it's got gold, it's got all kinds of resources, but yet it's regarded in 2004 when I first made that film, it was regarded as one of the poorest countries on earth. And I'm like, how can such a rich country be such a poor country, like in the economic global list? So I kind of made the film as like a mixed Jamaican, British, African man returning back to Africa for the first time and then investigating what is the history here. And so that sort of like opened me up on a pilgrimage of filmmaking. And my martial arts, like I said, gave me the power and the courage to step into the unknown. Because I was walking into territories that like no, like I was leading it. There was no one else taking me apart from I feel like a call from my ancestors who empowered me and encouraged me to go and do this work. And a call for those living today who call, no matter what your ethnicity is, who call for a greater world where we have a greater understanding of who we are as human beings in the 21st century. And then since that first film, I've made numerous different films in Africa and in the UK that look at African history, look at indigenous cultures, look at politics, look at spirituality. And that's just been a big part. So the martial arts was kind of like my passion and love that helped me refine and develop myself and face myself and discover more of myself. And my craft became this as a storyteller, a filmmaker, a truth seeker, and a griot. As I began to go deeper into my African heritage and understand history, I realized that actually I am a griot. I'm a storyteller. And actually my ancestors tell stories through me. I'm like a vessel. And I've been on this journey of listening, putting myself out there to do work that it can have a positive impact to all people on our planet. It can have a positive impact to our planet, to encourage us more to connect back to our natural way of living in appreciation, in respect for the earth we live on, and learning how to create more of a harmonious connection of culture. And so, yeah, my martial art has definitely gone hand in hand with my journey as a filmmaker and as a professional. And I think also being a martial artist, even on simple scenarios, right, is like I move to them from a martial art perspective. Like if I've got to go to an interview, I feel certain. I don't know how this is going to go right now, but I'm going to ground myself. I'm going to use my breath control. I'm going to use my weight. I'm going to ground myself. I'm going to have a clear vision. I'm going to focus my mind on the outcome I'm looking towards. Same way as if you're going to go into a fight. If you're going to go and do a ring fight or a sport, or you're going to your training, you want to have a clear thing about what are you working on, what are you trying to master, what are you trying to get out of this training session, what are you trying to get out of this fight, what are you trying to get out of this interview. And I would use those same martial arts skills and apply it to all other areas of my life. So it's been a deep journey. I got into studying acting as well from about 2014, 15. And I'd gone from directing and being behind the camera, directing, producing, editing, and doing a bit of presenting. And then I went and studied acting because I thought, what, I actually want to start doing some more drama, some film pieces, and mixing together some of the history and culture into some interesting films. So I thought, let me study acting for a while. And I found it so interesting because in the martial arts, it taught me to have a poker face. You get punched in the face, don't show no pain. You get punched in the ribs, it hurt like the worst pain you ever felt. Don't show no pain. Right? You're like, poker face that. Don't show it. Work through it. And then when I started studying acting, they were like, yeah, we want to feel the pain. We want to really see the emotion. And I was like, oh, this is totally the opposite of what I've been practicing. So it was actually quite healing as another perspective because it taught me to then swim more in an emotional expression of self, right? It gave me another capacity to start to go, I've really learned to like develop this armor, but actually now I've got the armor. I don't need to walk with the armor. How do I now soften so I can tap into the heart more? And I feel like the more dangerous I became as a martial artist, in the sense the fact that I had the skills to be dangerous, I think it's also given me more of the freedom to be softer as I've got older. When I was younger, I was kind of like more fearful of the world around me because there's like as a teenager in my young 20s, man, them are out there, they're looking to test each other, like they're looking at you in the face, like, yo, what are you looking at? Like it could kick off easy at all kind of moments, right? And so like you had to be on your guard in lots of situations. And I found the more deeper I've gone into this part of my journey and the more I've traveled globally, if somebody moves to me and looks to me with that same energy now, I smile at them. I give them heart. I'm like, I got love for you. I don't have fear for you. Whereas in the past, I was like, no, I'm fearful of what you might bring. I'm fearful of what I might do. I'm fearful of the moment, right? Whereas now I'm like, no, I'm gonna give you love. If you want pain, we can go down that path. Like, I'm not afraid of that path. I'd rather send a loving, positive energy to you to realize that I'm moving from that place now. Like that is what I feel like is a defining factor for me. Like I'd rather move from a place of love in all things that I do now, rather than move from a place of like, no, I'm guarded, I'm armed up, I'm ready for conflict in any which way, right? I'd rather move from a place of love and groundedness in my own nature as a protective being, as a protective person on earth that's walking with a good heart to do good things on earth, right? And if somebody wants to do something bad, I'm like, I'm prepared to go down that line, but that's not what I'm looking for, and that's not how I'm moving anymore, you know? But it's been a journey to get to that place, man. You know, especially I feel like being a young man that didn't have a father to protect me, I had to walk guarded. You know what I mean? I had to find how to have that guard. I had to find that guard within myself because nobody else was guarding me, you know? And I even see it nowadays as a fighter, like looking at some fighters. Like I love the ties, right? Because if you look at ties when they're sparring, they have fun. They're like they will do all mad kicks, they'll kick each other in the face, but like there's no weight behind it, right? Like they're not trying to hurt each other. Like it's just control. Like boom, I put my foot in your face. I put my shin in your face. I could have followed through, but we're just having a light spar. You know, like boom, here's a knee, like landed the knee, and there's connection, but there's no full weight behind it. There's no velocity. There's no like savagery. Like I want to immobilize you and break you in this sparring session, right? But when they fight, the same play, but then they're gonna break you in the fighting. When they're turning up to fight, the exact same place, free spirited, positive, loving energy expressing their martial art, but then there's weight behind it. There's meaning behind it, and it will break their opponents, right? And for me, it's like, how do you learn to refine that? I see lots of people, right? You got some people that fight out of fear. They're like, I don't want to get hit. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna hit you because I want to react before you hit me. I'm gonna hurt you. You know. You got others who fight out love. They love the love of the joy of it. You know, the joy of the movement, the fun of the expression, and the fact that they're at peace. You know, they're prepared for you to hit them. They've let go of the fear of being hit. Do you know what I mean? Like they're at peace. You're gonna smack me in the face. You beat me. You best me. Cap on cap. Thank you very much. You bested me. You caught me with a good shot. Big up. Well done. You landed that good shot. That was you. You won that game. You know, it wasn't from the place of being afraid of getting caught in that shot. And I think that is a big change in gameplay. When you look at certain fighters, like the fighters that fight from a place of fear to want to hurt somebody, and then the people who fight from a place of joy and love and enjoyment in their art. You know, I think it creates a very, very different fighter. And I've really, for me, I resonate with the latter one. I really resonate with developing the art to fight out of a place of joy and to fight out of a place of love in your art, love in your creativity, loving the pressure of the fight, loving the danger of the fight, but being at peace in the face of adversity so that you can bring the best of yourself to the forefront. Because I think when we fight out of fear, you shut down part of your higher brain. Do you know what I mean? You get tight and tense. Yeah, you can have power. Yeah, you can have strong technique, and you can be dangerous when you fight out of fear. You know, it's like a wound. Like when you think about a wounded tiger, and you've cornered a wounded tiger, that tiger might be the most ferocious it's ever going to be in that corner as it just lashes out for its last. Yeah. But it's not going to be in its highest mind to enjoy it. Like if it was fighting from the highest mind, it might have never got in the corner in the first place. It might have never got, you might never caught it in the corner. It might have battered you up before even you had a chance to get it in the corner. Do you know what I mean? So I know that was a lot. I answered more than your question, but it just took me down that line.
Well, I will tell you this though, right? I listened to every single word, and it's a great answer, absolutely brilliant. And what it shows me, Kru, it shows me that what you answered that question completely honestly, right? And I'll tell you why I believe so. When you had said that you've been practicing martial arts for longer, much longer than you haven't, right? It shows, right, and then through your explanations after, it shows me that you have taken martial arts and put that plan and put how you have learned and how you're structured learning of martial arts. You have put that same structure onto your life, onto other
Mm,
parts of your life. So
mm,
just as how your martial arts have grown and how you have grown through different teachers and through different perspectives on the martial art, right? You have now grown and taken different perspectives on parts of your life, like how you had said, you have done the directing and the producing, right? But now you have gone on to acting, right?
mm.
So now you can see that whole different side from being in front of the camera versus behind. So I believe you have literally taken martial arts and put that to the rest of your life. So it's not like
100%.
you're something else and then you have martial arts. No, you're a martial artist doing other things.
Other
So
things, yeah,
that's
yeah.
what you are
It's
you're
funny, it's funny.
at your core. You're
Yeah,
a
yeah, it's
martial artist.
funny. And often, and I've never really thought about it like that. It's like, it's actually, this question made me actually analyze that more. I've never actually thought, oh, actually, that's actually what that is. It's like that came out more clearly as I was talking to you then. But yeah, 100%, it's manifested in all things. It's been such an important part of my own defining of myself. And then it's like I built that up and then also let that go to let it flow into other things, you know? Because again, when you look
Yeah,
at what is like really as a martial artist, like you said, like one thing when you think about kung fu is about developing a dedication to skill. But again, a martial artist again is like you're an artist, you know, at its essence, right? Like people often think about martial arts and fighting, but in my journey, because like Muay Thai and Muay Boran have been my dedicated paths, right? Very specifically, Muay Thai and Muay Boran has grown in that through and through. But Muay Thai has been my dedicated practice start for like 30 years this year. Right? And then in those 30 years, like before that, I'd done some other martial arts as well, but I'm not really counting that. Even though that was in me and part of my journey, I'm talking about the dedicated focus of like the last 30 years of Muay Thai. Within that, I've also done a bit of Tai Chi. I've also like some focused years of Tai Chi. I've also done a lot of Qigong and then developed aspects of like energy cultivation and just applied that back to my own Muay Thai practice. And that's really been a beautiful yin and yang balance in my art. So as a practitioner, like nowadays, I really define myself more like I'm a Muay Thai Qigong practitioner. Like, and then it clicked. One person said it to me once. I'm like, wow, that's even a sentence. Muay Tai Chi Gong. Wow, that's I was like and those is like a harmony of my systems, right? Like the external, powerful, hard martial art of Muay Thai, of flowing into the soft, slow flowing, hard martial art of Tai Chi when it's practiced in its most dangerous fighting system, and then the energy cultivation of pure flow, breath control, and balance of energy development of qigong, and the yin and yang of those has been my longevity practice. Because for me, as I get older, it's about longevity, it's all about energy, it's all about movement. And then over the last 10 years I got into dance, so I started doing salsa and bachata. Like I always had a little bit of a two-step, bit of a bogle here and there, a bit of Jamaican flair and a bit of a vibes, but I never dedicated any time to learning dance, right? And then I spent a period of time of like properly dedicated dancing consistently. And I went from like throwing down with sweaty men and sweaty women in martial arts to like dancing with like elegant women and that like this amazing, beautiful expression of energy that's very much on the masculine and the feminine expression of leading and following and flowing. And then through dedicated study of dance, and then applying that back to the martial art, like it adapted my martial art flow because it brought more fluidity into the martial art I practiced. And so that's what I really clock. Like for me, as much as I practice a fighting system, for me, I'm an artist, whether it comes to like pen and paper, filmmaking, art, writing, acting expression, martial art expression, dance. For me, it's about having a deeper dedication and mastery to some form of art, and we can apply it to be into the martial system, what I love, but it also mirrors into so many other elements, and so many other aspects that That's what I love about it. It can help you have so much more of a rounded life. You know, like I've got two kids now, and my youngest is 2.5, 2 3/4, and the oldest is 5 3/4, and they're both girls. And you know, I always was thought I was like hardwired to have boys, and then the universe gave me girls, and I was like, oh wow, swimming in more feminine energy and learning to respect more of that flow in my life and becoming a protector to that energy and then supporting that and supporting them to grow. And then as my oldest got to like 4.5, I began to teach her martial arts. And she's good at it. She's got a good flow, but she loves like she'd spend hours like playing with flowers and being in the garden and like she's like a girly girl. Even though she'll climb trees and like likes catching animals, she also is in that natural flow of being quite feminine, right? What is beautiful, and I encourage her in that. And I said, look, I'll always protect you, but I want you to also be able to protect yourself if I'm not around. So like, for me, martial arts is compulsory. Yeah, there's not a choice. And she's like, oh, I don't really like doing Muay Thai. Because I'm hard on her, right? I make her, train. If she's not playing around, I'll give her discipline, make her be focused, make her work hard at it, right? And actually, look, in her class, most of the kids are boys, and there's only a couple girls, right? I'm trying to get more girls to come in, but at the moment there's more boys than girls, right? So she's having to deal with this masculine energy, whereas she's got a lot of the soft feminine energy. So I'm teaching her how to like handle that and build up her self-esteem in that energy. And she's like, oh, I don't really like doing it. And I'm like, no, I understand that. Do you like brushing your teeth? And she's like, no. I'm like, well, martial arts is the same as that. For me, it's part of your life. This is not just about block, punch, kick, knee, and elbow. This is about learning discipline, focus, consistency, the self-transformational parts of it. Like this is about learning to balance your energy, learning to build a protective energy in for you. And you obviously know it for your own life, right? But I feel like this, so many of us, especially, I was going to say especially boys, but boys and girls, right, need to swim in a space where they can realize, oh, wow, I can refine myself. I can improve myself and transform my connection to my physical being, to my emotional being, to my mental being, to my essence through this physical practice, And like so many young people that like we have a massive issue with knife crime in the UK, just like you probably have a big issue with gun crime in America, right? And a lot of that comes from fear. One of my students, he said to me, he was walking with a big knife, right? A young kid. And I'm like, bro, why are you walking with a knife like that? Like, you get caught with a knife like that, you're going to jail. No question. You're going to jail for having a knife like that. Big kitchen knife like this. And he's like, yeah, but I'm afraid like if somebody pulls out a knife on me, I need to have something to protect myself. And I'm like, so it's that for me, it's like a lot of these kids that end up hurting each other or get killed or end up killing somebody. It's because they're afraid. They're afraid of themselves. They're afraid of the world outside of themselves. And so more time they're going to be quick to do something like that and then spend the rest of their life regretting it. Whereas like if you have a space to go and practice martial arts and you have a safe space to face your fears and get pushed out of your comfort zone, you can deal with that energy. So when you're in a real life street situation, you're not coming from a place of fear because you know what that energy is like. You're not trying to find yourself and prove yourself on the street because you did it in a safe space, in the gym, in the dojo, on the mat, in the ring, you know. And for me, I think it's so important to help young people cultivate that energy within themselves and learn how to balance that energy inside and outside for life skills, not just for fighting and not just for martial arts, from a martial art perspective, right? But from a self-mastery perspective, a personal development perspective, you know.
Again, Kru, brilliant answers. Nothing but brilliant answers,
Love,
right?
man.
All right, but anyway, getting back to our interview there, sir, right?
Yeah.
So you had mentioned your daughter, right? And her martial arts, a little bit of her martial arts experience, or how she, or better said, her outlook towards martial arts, as how she's a very girly girl, right? She loves playing with her flowers, she loves being outside, but she doesn't really like the masculine side, which is the martial arts, Muay Thai. She doesn't like fighting, she doesn't want to do it, right? Now, when you encounter a student like that, I've always thought that those students are those that test your mettle as a teacher, right? When someone doesn't really want to learn something or they're having trouble learning something, and it is your job to teach them, right? That this is your job as a teacher, right?
Mm.
Um, when you have a student like that, I'd like to know if you could teach, right, only one thing, what would it be? Knowing that it could be a technique or it could be a philosophy, what would it be?
Wow. Yeah, that's a tough one. Just to one. That's a tough one, man. Um, Specifically to that one type of student.
Well, you know what? Let's make it easier. Let's broaden it.
I
Or
just had to
any
think. Yeah,
student,
yeah. Because
period.
you know, when you think if just one student that doesn't really want to learn, like, then I was like, oh, that's a tough one. If we're gonna say like, what do I think is one key thing as a teacher to teach in teaching martial arts? Like nowadays, I really think about it. I like to look at yourself as a temple, right? You are the temple, and or you could say a fortress or the home. Your inner self is the temple. And in the way I teach Muay Thai is like you're standing on a square, opposite corners of a square, right? And around that square is a circle. And that circle represents your inner temple. And as a martial artist, you don't want to let anyone come into that inner temple, right? So then you have to understand what is your perimeters of defense. So like from a Muay Thai perspective, your longest range weapons is your most furthest boundary. So to know your boundary, like what is your most distant boundary? Know that, establish that boundary. It's going to be your longest range weapons like your push kicks, your shin kicks, your long range punches, overhand punches, straight punches. Then you're going to have a mid boundary, mid space boundary. That's going to be your uppercuts, your hooks, your knees, right? And then your closest range is going to be your elbows from a Muay Thai perspective, right? So for me, it's about how do you know how to stand more balanced on your square to protect your inner temple? And then how do you know your boundaries effectively of where you can reach somebody and how you can handle someone breaking into your perimeters? So like nowadays, like no one ever taught me that when I was learning, but I feel like nowadays having a more clearer central point on self and then understanding how to express yourself from your furthest point to your closest point and how to defend yourself from your furthest point to your closest point is like probably one of the biggest crunch focuses that you could take on as a martial artist to focus that from a 360-degree perspective around yourself. I think it's a great way of like visualizing protection. And I like even like referring it back to like imagine back in the day you had a castle and then you've got like your moats and you've got your outer perimeter, right? And it's like if you perceive yourself from that perspective, then how do you handle these different ranges? Because one of the things sometimes is a challenge is how do you set the distance into attack? How do you block somebody coming into your space? How do you know your energetic field that is your space, and how do you deal with that offensively and defensively? Back to that awkward, that hard work student, right? That hard work student, right? That is reluctant. I think it's the biggest thing is about the transformation of self, right? Is like, you know, sometimes my kids are like, oh, I can't do that. And then I'm like, well, let's try again. How about we try from another perspective? Or how about you look at it from another perspective and keep trying. And then you realize, oh, you can do it. So it's like, oh, so you can do it. So like I can and I can't is about how do you look at things. So for those hard students that are kind of, reluctant, don't know, it's kind of like brushing your teeth, right? Like, you say to a kid, you don't like brushing your teeth, all right, don't brush your teeth. Watch how your teeth go black and they start drop out. And you're gonna hate going to the dentist more than you didn't like brushing your teeth. Do you know what I mean? So everything is cause and effect. And you can actually you are the controller of your life. So that's one of the biggest things for me is teaching kids consequences of their own actions. Like, so like you can reward yourself by doing good things, or you can punish yourself by doing destructive things. And like for me, that's one of the biggest lessons I think we can pass on to our students, right? Is like literally the power of cause and effect. You know, in Jamaica, we say, if you not listen,
Yeah, go feel.
you must feel.
Oh gosh. Oh gosh. Only a true Jamaican would know that tune. I love how you brought that back. I love how you brought that in. That was a great tie-in, my friend. That was great. That was great. I love it. I love it. I love it. That was absolutely brilliant. Again. Oh my gosh. Oh, that's great. So let's go back to it. If you could teach only one thing, transformation of self. I understand. I understand. You know what? Since we're talking patois, I overstand, brother. I
Yeah,
overstand.
yeah, man, you don't know.
Sorry,
Love,
God, sorry, God.
love.
So you
So
know what? Again, I completely agree with that answer. Right? That's best said. That's the best way it can be said. So, last question. How can you be contacted?
you can't contact me, man. I'm everywhere and nowhere. No, I'm joking. Now you can contact me through my website, was lionheartmuaythai.com. And that shows you our my Muay Thai Academy. You can contact me on Instagram. That is on two folds. It's like I it's called Wisdom Foragers, Wisdom underscore Foragers. Because I also run a YouTube channel nowadays where we do a mixture of like bushcraft, travel, adventure, culture, history, martial arts. Basically, the construct of Wisdom Foragers on YouTube is about foraging life for wisdom. Like, where can we find wisdom in all things in life, life hacks, and how to get the most out of life, basically. So, you can find us on YouTube with that. You can find me on Instagram with that. On a martial art level, you can follow us on Instagram, on TikTok, and online through my website. What's Lionheart Muay Thai Academy.
Contact information for Kru Nuakai Lionheart Aru will be in description down below. Also in description down below will be a link for Feiyue shoes. If you need Feiyue shoes, go ahead and click the link down below. Get the best prices, get the best deals, all at feiyueshoes.com. Kru Nuakai Lionheart Aru. My sir, thank you very much for the time that you've taken to educate me on Muay Thai, Muay Boran, ancient fighting. Thank you.
Thank you, my bro. I appreciate it, man. Really good talking to you. Love to chat to you again. Also, I forgot to say is I've got a new book coming out in October. It's called The Essence of Muay Thai. It looks at the spiritual dimensions of Muay Thai, looks at the history, looks at the esoteric practices within Muay Thai and Muay Boran, looks at the breakdown of Muay Boran into Muay Thai, looks at Krabi Kabong, double swords fighting systems, and aspects around Thai culture, mythology, and spirituality. Somewhat of the more less known and less spoken about aspects of Muay Thai, but imperative if you're a deep Muay Thai practitioner or you're somebody who wants to practice Muay Thai and you want to understand a much more holistic side of this art, it's an amazing book for that. So yeah, it's coming out effectively this October. So check it out. You can pre-order it online from now. It's on Amazon. It's on a lot of different sites. If you just type in online The Essence of Muay Thai by Nuakai Rue, and you'll find it.
All right. I'm also going to include a link for Kru Nuakai Aru's book down in the
Thank you.
description below.
You will,
All
man.
right, Kru.
Thank you, my
Thank you very
bro.
much for all the
Thank you. Thank
time,
you.
man. It
Yeah,
was a
man, love.
great conversation, and honestly, hey, I don't even want to stop talking, but unfortunately, we do. You have a life to get back to, so do I, sir. Thank you very much.
Give thanks for brother.